quite easily. So let's start. So hello everyone, my name is Nicolas Player. I'm French motion graphic artist and director living currently in Auckland, New Zealand. And today what we're going to do is that we're going to see how we can create this kind of effect in After Effects. So this is what I've done basically. This is what I've done before as an example. Here we have another version that I like a little bit better. Here, basically. And this is all based on my paper mine. Yeah. Except that this was done in stop motion, you know, with a cutout piece of paper that has been shot, and each piece of paper that has just been shot for the next frame is put behind a new one, basically, and on and on and on and on to create that kind of 4D animation. Basically, this is not just kind of 2.5D anymore, which is, you know, this kind of it's shot in a three-dimensional space, but it's also you know, you have also you know, a little bit of a difference in time. You have all those frames that are either from what's going to happen or what has just happened in the in the first frame, in the frame that is in the foreground. So yeah, I think it was definitely a pretty interesting effect, and I always thought that it could be really easy to achieve in After Effects rather than using paper, a lot of ink. Sometimes if you want to print or have some color in it. For example, this music video here was probably more than probably done only in After Effects. Absolutely no stop motion, no paper cut, no ink, anything, nothing. It's all done in After Effects, and I thought that after seeing this one, that could be a good idea to share with people how to basically to create that, and I had an idea how to achieve that look. So I did first version of that tutorial in French, and now I'm trying to do it in English. So I hope you'll forgive me if I making some English mistakes, or if I you know, not using always the right word. I'm trying. Anyway, let's start with After Effects. Basically, what I've done for the first version is that I've created that animation based on a piece of music. It's a piece of music basically that a friend of mine has done. I've done several music videos with him and I'm currently in post-production of the new one. But yeah, I've made an excerpt of 30 seconds or so of one of his music. So basically this is the basic, and we are going to do the same here. So what I do is that I take that WAV file, that audio file, and I drop it in here. So that creates a new composition with the length, you know, of the length of that audio file basically. And we can go in here, Control K to change the composition setting, and let's call it stage, and change also the width, which is 1500 by 1500, 12 frames per second. Pretty important if you want to achieve that stop motion look. 24 frames per second, 25 frames per second, or 24 frames per second are too fast. Yeah, it's too fast. It's not working as good. I think it definitely works better at 12 frames per second. So I think that, and that's pretty good, because then you have less frame to render, and that effect is pretty you know, it's pretty heavy on the rendering time. So it's pretty good to have a little bit less frame to render. So yeah, 12 frames per second is good. So 1500 by 1500, a square basically. Yep. Here you go. So so on that one, this is basically what's going to happen. The animation. There's just a basic animation. We are not doing all the static we're not stacking up the layers yet. Basically, we are not just starting with the basic animation. So let's start by creating a solid comp size. Let's call that frame. This is going to be the frame. Okay, this is white solid, and let's create another one. 1024 by 576. Don't need any name because we're not going to use it for very long. 1024 by 576 is the PAL widescreen square pixel format. So once we have those this solid, basically what we're going to do is create a mask at the exact size of that solid. So to do that, what you do is to double click on the rectangle tool here, and it's creating a mask of the size of the layer that is selected, and then you select that mask here and you copy it into the frame in here, and now you can delete that layer in here. M to have, to make the mask appear. MM even better because we're going to use mask expansion, and subtract, and here mask expansion we're going to go -35. So now we have just created the edges of the frame, for the final shot. And now what we can do is create another solid. Let's call it audio spectrum. In here, make it comp size again, so 1500 by 1500. Copy the mask once again in here. Copy the mask and add an effect called, go into effect, generate an audio spectrum in here. So basically it's based on an audio file. It's going to just follow the give the audio spectrum of an audio file. So to keep everything white for the time being, we're going to change the outside and inside color into white. We're going to tell him to use a path, which is this one. So maybe the good thing would be to just make the mask a little bit smaller, smaller, so that basically it sits on the edge of the shot, like this. And finally, because here you can't see much, you can probably increase the maximum height. Remove the mask. Let's change the color of the mask because it's not obvious enough. Probably not the best color as well. This blue. It's a strange color. It's so strange. Sorry, something strange going on. It's not supposed to do that. That's because I used polar path. Sorry. So here, that's definitely better. Now then it's a little bit high. Okay, what else can you do to make it change? Probably add a bit more thickness, and get rid of the softness as well. In here, it's pretty good. So yeah, so if we have a look at what it does, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Don't need to hear the music. So, and you can, if you want, you can play around. You can have this instead, which is definitely interesting, and stuff like that. So we're going to stop working on the stage part for the moment, and we're going to add some paper texture to the whole thing. And what we're going to do is that we're going to stack up the layers and see how to you know, how to make them automatically go behind another when every time you duplicate a new layer, you know, so that we don't have to move them into position ourselves. We are going to use a few expressions so that it works automatically based on the index of the layer. In here, this is the index, the number of the number in the composition. You know, each layer has an index number 1, 2, 3, and so on. So and then after that we'll go back and add a few things in the stage thing, but it's just, you know, to move on. So we go back to the project manager. We are creating another composition from the stage composition. In here, we can call it paper stage. We leave all the other attributes exactly the same, and in here what we do is that we add this below. This is basically a paper texture, you know, it's that I got from one of the Video Copilot products. But you can Google any other texture, you can Google paper texture, and you'll find heaps and heaps of them. So, but this one is definitely pretty good. What I do is that I transform fit to comp, you know, to make it exactly the comp size. And what we're going to do is that we're going to track matte, alpha matte stage. So now, if we get 100% and full resolution, let's go there now. It has the, you know, the David is slightly grayish and having them some, you know, yeah, paper texture feel that is more interesting. But what we're going to do is that we're still going to make that. Let's go back to a quarter of the resolution. That's better, it's faster to render. We're still going to make it visible, but we're going to change the transfer mode to multiply. So what's it going to do? That every time that you, for example, change the colors or something, and if you have something colored in that, you will have the colors that will appear in here, but we'll still have the paper texture on top of it. So I think that's definitely the best way to do, because if you keep it, you know, invisible and just use the alpha channel, then basically you will have only the paper texture and only the shape of what's going on in here, and you will lose all the color information, and sometimes you want the colors information. We kept it white here to keep it simple and really basic, but it's a good thing, you know, to play with colors and stuff like that. So, yep, so that's good. We can do that. What we're going to do now is add a null object in here. Let's put it visible here. We're going to link the stage and the paper texture to that null object. The point here is basically if you want to play with the idea that there is a delay in time with all the layers and stuff like that. If you rotate and you have one full rotation in here, so it will give interesting results in the final composition that we are going to do right now. So basically you take, then again, the paper stage composition, drop it into that to create a new composition. And let's change all the name. It's called main paper. Now we are going to change it to 1024 by 576, still 12 frames per second, still square pixel. And now this is basically what we have. We have so this PAL widescreen thing, and we have, you know, this, you know, edges of the frame, which is definitely interesting. If you think it's maybe a little bit too thick, So if you think it's a little bit too thick, then we can go back to the stage 1, go to frame, and maybe -30. Probably more interesting. Let's see. I don't think that's because of the. I think that's because of that. Probably a little bit too thick. Let's change that a little bit less. Probably a little bit less thickness. 40. And let's go back to the digital thing. Probably a little bit more interesting. And let's see how it goes. In here, yeah, I think that's definitely better. Okay, what we do now is that we create here a new light where you cast shadow and everything, point light, 100% cast shadow, everything perfect. There is no 3D layers yet. We're going to add that. We're going to put, that's very important, to put that light below all the paper stage layers that are going to, they have to be on top. They all have to be from 1 to X number of layers you want, but they have to be on top. And what we're going to do also is create another adjustment layer. Let's call it controls, even more than one control, and add some expression control. We're going to add checkbox control, and back. Let's call it backward / forward. That's good, and also add expression control. Add slider control and duplicate them. Control D to duplicate them. So we have 3 different ones. So let's call it frames. The first one frame, the second one exposure, and the third one distance. So this is all going to basically control. We're going to use that to control the distance between frames, and we are also going to distance between frames, also the level of exposure of each layers, basically, because the further you get in distance in the z-axis, the darker they have to be, and you want to be able to control that. If you depending on the distance. If they are really far, then you want them darker, but if they are all really close, you want them a little bit brighter and stuff like that. And frames is going to be the number of frames you want. You want the layer that is behind each layer. To be, if you wanted 1 frame behind, then you put 1 in here. And basically, and forward, backward is basically if you want the layers to be that are behind, if you want them to be like from before or from after the current instant, current moment. It's probably a little bit tricky to understand, but it's pretty. It will make sense when everything comes together. So we are now going to add the expression to kind of the master layer. Basically, in here, first of all we turn on the 3D thing. So now the light is basically, this layer is seen by the light. So you have this kind of light fall off here. It's a little bit darker, and here a little bit brighter. And that's it. And what we're going to do also is add the material options and cast shadow. Switch that to on. Good. And add one simple effect that is going to be the exposure effect in here. All good. Perfect. So now what we do in here, we're going to lock that panel here so that it's always available, because we're going to when we're going to create the expressions, then we will need to link to those things in here. Then now what we're also going to do is enable time remapping, so that we can basically make it, move it forward in time or not. So if you change that, you'll see here. Here we had the frame 49. Here frame 49, but you can move it forward, and then you have all this. So basically here it's a little bit faster, but it's not really the point here. So let's delete that keyframe. And what we're going to do is first click on the stopwatch here. It's going to create an expression. And with this expression, so I'm going to be quite fast, not going to explain exactly how the expression works to start with, because it's pretty complex and it's pretty hard to explain if you don't see how it goes. So I'll type them up and then we'll see how they work together. So if index superior to 1, then something else time remap. Okay. Okay, let's make that a little bigger. Quite big actually. A bit bigger. Okay. And now temp, it's a variable. So temp, take the expression, frames in here. So basically you have this variable that you assign this value in here, frames, to this variable. So the number of frames, basically, I should probably call that not temp frames. Yeah, NB frames. It's always a good idea to have, to give names to your layers and everything. It's cleaner, the code is cleaner, it makes more sense, it's a bit more logical. Okay, and what we're going to do also is divide that by 12, which is the number of frames per second we're at. So if you're working at 12 frames per second, then you have to divide it by 12, but otherwise, if you are 25 frames per second, or 29 or 30 or 24, you have to divide it by 20 by the number of frames you're working on, because in here, how time remapping works is basically that you have, if you tell him time remap is 1, then it's not going to be 1 frame, but it's going to be 1 second. So let's say that if you want to add 1 frame to the current time you're at, basically you will have to divide 1 to add something like add 1 divided by 12 or 1 divided by 25 if you add 25 frames per second. So this is how it works. Okay, then if forward, backward, if that is checked or not. So if it's unchecked here, then else. If it's unchecked, then let's say back. It's 1, and if it's unchecked, if it's checked, it's back. -1 or -1. Okay. And now that you have the two variables that are going to, and now that you have the values that you want, you can change the time remapping according to the values you've entered here and there. So it's time. Let's just to be sure, because it's case sensitive. So even better, you can use the big whip in here. So now you can assign a new value to time remap. So this comp dot layer index -1 time remap. Sorry. So time remap. The new value is that you're going to take the value of the time remap, that is of the layer that is above index -1. Basically, if it's like that, it's the value of the current time remap here -1. So that's the one that is above. It will make more sense a little bit later. Where and now plus NB frames, number of frames, okay, multiply by back. So it's going to be the number of frames, either multiply by 1, so it's forward, or minus multiply by -1, so it's going to take the certain number of frames out of this value and assign it to the new time remapping. And I think that's it for now. Okay, I think we have everything. Okay, I think that's good. Oh, now next we're going to do more or less the same thing for the exposure effect. So you've got it in here. So same, Alt click on the stopwatch in here, and same. Basically, if index 1, and else something else. So yeah, if it's not 0 to 1, then heat. Then it's good. If it's not, okay. But again, let's make that a little bit bigger. Okay. So now it's going to be the same. This comp dot layer index -1 effect. So yeah. So yeah, all this expression, the basic idea of this expression is that it's always going to look at what's going on in the layer that is above and calculate the value for this layer according to the layer that is above always. And you know, since they're stacking up, then it's always, you know, everything will be in relation. So it's really easy to update. So that's the good idea. So effect, name of the effect is exposure, and the parameter of this effect is also it's also called exposure. So the first one is the name of the effect. So you would have, you know, anything else, but it's this, and yeah, the parameter is exposure, but you have something else here. You have offset, so you could write offset in here. You have gamma correction, but here what's interested us is this exposure. Okay, and what we're going to do, and we're going to basically add this and divide it by 4. It's random. It's something like that, because otherwise, if you apply, you know, directly the value, if you apply -2 or something like that, it's going to be a little bit too big. The difference are going to be too big too fast. So let's tone it down by dividing by 4. It could be 3. Could be nothing. It could be. You don't necessarily have to divide by something, but I think that's a better idea to do it that way. So divide by 4, and that's it. Basically, that's it. Okay. That's it. And now we're going to do the same with the position. In here, position. So for the position, what we're going to do is that we're going just to change we're going to work only with the z-axis, that means depth, and we're not going to touch the x and y axis. So yeah, based on that value in here. So we can even start by putting some numbers in here. That's 200. I think that's a good thing to start with. Good number. Exposure -1. You'll see -1 frames. That's good. And maybe check having that checkbox checked. So same, exactly the same modus operandi. Here we have if index. Oops. Here is if index _1. Here you go. Else. Let's go z boss is 0, and here, and then between brackets in here, first one, we're not going to change the x and y. Here that's x and here that's y, and here it's going to have the value z or z boss, z position. Okay, all good. Yeah, I think what we could do is a good idea. It's always a good idea to maybe add a little bit of randomness, since we are trying to emulate the stop motion look. Then a little bit of randomness, a little bit of more organic movement is a good thing, to make it look more believable. Just like using a light to make it look more real, and shadows to all those makes it look more real. So I think we could add a little bit of randomness. So if you do random -1 1 to the z position, and same, we're going to just copy and paste the code to the y position in here. So it's basically, it's going to keep exactly the same value as it's here, but it's going to randomly on every frame assign a value. It's going to add a value between -1 and 1, and same here, -1 and 1. Every frame is going to change a little bit, so it's going to add a little bit of shaking. So I think that's a good thing to have that. We could even add that to the z boss, but I don't think that's really relevant right now. Okay, so now same thing. Discomp, so discomposition, layer, index -1. Okay, transform. So we're going to do in all the all the transformation, meaning scale, position, anchor point, rotation. Transform dot position 2, that's the z position, position 2, and we're going to add this. We're going to add the value that is here. So then again, it's going to look at the layer that is above and see what's the position of the layer above, and we're going to add 200 or whatever to that position, and then yeah, and then we'll have our position in the z-axis. So we need to z boss, and I think that's it. Okay. I think we have all our expressions now. So if we duplicate this, let's turn off the light for the moment. If we duplicate this, we should see the second layer move a little bit further in the back and also be a little bit darker. Yep, that works. I think it will be more. It will work a little bit better. So yeah, and if the more you add, and the more it will go in the back, like that. And you can see there is this shadow, there is everything is in there. So maybe that's a little bit, still a little bit, it could be a little bit darker. And here, as you can see, it's getting darker. If you go -3, it will get, yeah, you will have real difference in here, even without the lights. In here you have this. If you go 400, you go definitely, yeah, there will be 400 pixels between this and this and this and this, 400 pixels each time. Okay, what else? And here you have 1 frame. If you change that to 3, then this is, you know, there is more difference. But I think that definitely works better with only 1 frame. So if we have a look at how it does, you'll see in here if it works or not. Come on, please. Yeah, here you go. And yeah, this is what I wanted to do, you know, with the rotation of the whole thing, of the frame. Then you have this kind of really cool effect. So this is what you have. And for example, so you see, it's basically like you see, it's kind of running away from us. And if you uncheck that, it will be the other way around. It will come toward us. As you can see, you know, everything flying to us. Definitely interesting. Okay, yeah, 1 frame. If you put 0, then there will be no frame. So everything is going, yeah, it's happening exactly at the same time. If you put, yeah, 3 frame, then it's happening a little bit earlier or a little bit later, as you can see. But I think that's definitely, it gives some weird result as soon as you're not using 1, especially when you're using stuff that are really frame by frame. Okay, what else? What else you can do? Then if you use the light, then yeah, as you've seen, the shadow a little bit too dark, a little bit too harsh. So we're going to change that. AA to bring the light, the options. Shadow darkness 50%. That's good. And 40 pixels shadow diffusion. Definitely, that makes more realistic look. But yeah, it takes really a lot of time to render and stuff like that. So you really have to be really careful about the number of layers you're adding into your composition and stuff like that, because it can make the composition impossible to render. I had that problem before. I had 21 layers and it couldn't. There was always a problem of blurring or shadow pass and stuff like that. So yeah, you really have to be really careful about that. But otherwise, it's pretty good. So now what we can do is we can go back to the stage part and start to play around and add some more things that we will be able to see them happening in here. What we could do just before we go back to the stage part, we could just add a little expression here, random, a wiggle, maybe a wiggle expression to change the value of, you know, the intensity, so to make the light flicker a little bit, so that, yeah, that looks a little bit more stop motion like. Because even if it's something you try to avoid in stop motion, you really try to avoid all the, you know, change of light intensity, because yeah, it looks fake if your light intensity changes too much from one frame to another. But it's one of the most difficult parts in stop motion actually. But here we want to emulate that. So what you could do is maybe 1010. So it's going to wiggle 10 times per second on the, you know, from -10 to +10. Here you go. So that gives, you know, this little flickering thing that looks a little bit more real, a little bit more realistic. Maybe that's a little bit too much and a little bit slow. I never know which one if it is affecting the time and which one is affecting the how much it's going to wiggle. So I think now that I've changed time, you can play around and use random or stuff like that. It's going. Yeah, here that's maybe a little bit too much. What we could do is using that plus random -5, 5. And now I think that's probably more what we're looking for instead, rather than the wiggling. It's probably, let's wait just a little bit to have a few frames rendered. Even on a quarter of the resolution, it's still quite slow to render. So imagine just full resolution and imagine full HD. All this, it can be really a real nightmare to render. Yeah, here that's maybe a little bit too much. So I think we can. Yes, I mean, yeah. Then again, play around. Yeah, try to find what suits you. Okay, if we go back to the stage. So on the stage, basically, what you can do or what you want to do is really up to you. Really, yeah, basically it's whatever you want to do. What we could try to do, for example, is maybe do just really quickly, because I think the tutorial is running quite long already. Just do the end, do this, just the end in here, and that's it. So yeah, let's try that. Okay, we still have this and that. What we can do is maybe change it a little bit. Yeah, we can unlock that, and maybe how does that look? It can be fun as well. Let's see how it looks like in the main composition. In here, so maybe just to make the render time a little bit faster, turn off the light. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Definitely more interesting. Okay, so let's add some text. Control T for the text. Let's call that the end. Put that in here. I think it's always more interesting to not to put that here in the middle, because if you go in the middle, then yeah, you don't have the perspective thing in here. But as soon as you put that off the center, we don't need that anymore. Off the center, I mean maybe in here, then you have that thing straight away. So after that's definitely more interesting to put it that way. Okay, so the end. And yeah, and add some typewriter, animating typewriter to that. So what's going to happen in here is that it's going to type the end like this, and you can have a look at how it looks like. I think now it's probably a little bit more interesting to have it coming towards us, actually. Yep, like this, because then we have all the letters coming in. Here we go. Okay. Okay, let's put that in here. Let's put it here. That's good. And now, what you can do is create another white solid. Say, yeah, we don't have to call it anything. and create an ellipse. Let's make it invisible for the time being and create an ellipse in here. So if you want to draw a mask from the center, you have to press Control, and if you want to keep it like a perfect circle, Shift. So it's Shift and Control, and then you have that. Having it, yeah, like a little bit, so that it's larger than the whole frame, like that. And you can put the layer back on and probably subtract and press M to have the mask path. Add a keyframe in here, go down a few another keyframes, just double click on the mask and then scale it down, then again Shift to scale it down and keep it shaped as a layer, and Control to scale it from the center. In here you go, we can stop here for a few frames, another keyframe to keep it like that way, and then again Shift and Control, and until it's really small, and it's small dots, so we can try to make it a little bit smaller. Then again, I think that's good. No, I think it's definitely good enough because it's the end. So this is how it looks like. Not really interesting in a stage part because it's just this and this, really basic. You have the end, yeah, you have this circle closing in, and that's it. Not really interesting, but when you go to the main composition, then definitely more interesting. As you can see, everything coming towards the and yeah, this is definitely what is really interesting, is that you have this strange closing thing, and then and here you go. So at the end, good. Yeah. So basically, we have. I think we've seen as much as possible. You can. The main idea is to play in here to really remember that the animation is not only going to be there. I mean, just not going to be that, but you have to think that it's being echoed in here. Actually, talking about echo, I've realized after I've done the first version of that tutorial in French, I've realized that the plugin, the trapcode plugin called EchoSpace that I don't have, but I've heard about and I've seen it working, I've used the demo version and stuff, is doing basically the same thing as this. You can do more or less the same thing. You know, you can have your layer in here, your animation in here, and using the trapcode EchoSpace plugin, and it's going to do exactly the same thing. You can set the distance between the layers that I code in space, and you can also change, you know, the time difference and stuff like that. So yeah, it's more or less the same thing, but here you can do the same thing with without any plugin, which is definitely a little bit more interesting. And I think it's always interesting to learn how to use the if thing, you know, if then else. Always interesting because it can be used in a lot of different possibilities, you know, in lots of different ways. Yeah, so I think that's it. So what we can do maybe is just have a look at how the expressions are working. For example, in here for the time remapping expression here, as you can see, we are at the frame 271, but here it's the frame 272 because it's checking what is the frame number of the layer above in here, so it's 271, and it's adding 1, which is the number we chose in here. So if we lock that layer again, we can see that. So yeah, it's adding 1 because, but if we, for example, let's say 3, so it's going to add 3 to 271 plus 3, 274, and in here basically same 274, that was the number in here, plus 3, 277, and so on. And this is basically working exactly the same way for the exposure and the position. And again, it's because here it's, you can change, here it's 800, but if you change that to 10, for example, everything is going to be really close. So it's 20 because that's, here it's 0, the position is 0, here the position 10, here the position is 20. So I think that's it. If you want to see other examples and stuff like that, and how all the possibilities you can do with that technique, I suggest that you go onto my Vimeo page. Here you have the 2 examples I showed you, to complete this. 2 of them are 36 seconds long. Where you can see I've tried several different ideas, of how to use the whole thing. If you want to find me on Vimeo, you just look for me for Nicholas Blair, and you'll see all my amazing videos. Basically, you already have this tutorial in French and a few different things, short film, some 5 seconds project from Nick Campbell, some stuff like that, some experimental videos, a lot of different stuff. And those 2 different things that are really try to be a little bit playful, play around with the concept, and try different ideas, try different colors and stuff like that. So I think that's it. And I hope you did enjoy my tutorial. I hope I was clear enough, that I was, I gave you enough information and enough, ideas to start working on that really cool effect. What I can do is maybe thank the great guy who invented the technique, basically. Okay, let's see. I can't remember his name. It's not in here. I've put the name in here. So the guy is, you'll see, it's Javan, I don't know. So that he's the guy who invented the technique, and I think he really deserves the credit on the whole thing, because that's it's still quite an amazing video. It's really cool, a lot of really cool ideas. So yep, thanks for listening, and see you next time. Thanks, bye.